Warning, this video contains explicit content, not suitable for your parents. Do not watch if you're my parents. Oh, what am I gonna do? Oh, hi there. You may have found me day drinking in a public park. Well, there's a great explanation for that, and I assure you, it's one that does not require the cops to be involved. You read the title of the video. Today I'm going to talk about adult-only video games. The only problem is, what the heck am I supposed to do? Like, these are the only games that you aren't allowed to show. There's only so much I can show without getting flagged, or worse, having to look at it myself. So I guess I'm playing this one by ear, everybody. If this video goes away, consider yourself lucky for having seen it. Or unlucky, frankly, I'm not jazzed about it myself. The ESRB is something we all just sort of have to live with. Until my fake ID printing press gets working, everybody younger than 18 years old, otherwise known as literal infants, is locked out of buying any video game with the letter M on the box. The existence of this rating system is something that was needed, but like a lot of rating systems for media, it's just not very effective. Sure, you need identification to buy a mature rated game, but you know who has one of those? That thing that spat you out their happy hole! Yes, parents are the paper to ESRB's rock. Just have one of them next to you and suddenly there is no line you can't cross. I know this for a fact since I saw it firsthand. One time I was buying a game at a GameStop and this mom and her little squirt came in. The kid ran to the shelf, grabbed Splatterhouse, and his mom didn't ask a single question. Yeah, the ESRB rating system is kind of a joke. There are a lot of weird loopholes to get around actually having to enforce it. When I bought the Metal Gear Solid HD collection, I expected to have to show my ID, but since Peace Walker is a T-rated game, they just let me buy it and be on my merry way. How did it get to be this way? Well, Sega once made a game with ladies in it, and Congress knew now was the time to act quickly. Gross oversimplification aside, the ESRB was established back in 1994, following the controversy surrounding Mortal Kombat, Night Trap, and Doom after the US government intervened. See, before this, games were always seen as just kids' toys, stuff you plugged into the TV to make your kids stop talking for a while, and as such were basically a necessity. However, now that violent video games were not only in the arcades, but now the home, they decided that some sort of moderation was needed. On top of that, the market had only recently recovered from the video game crash 10 years ago, so intervention from the US government would be disastrous. Sure, violence in video games wasn't anything new. Games like Death Race courted controversy long before these three, but this looks like something that happens when you reboot an ATM. This looks a little closer to the real thing. Night Trap especially was a bridge too far, as it was basically just a movie you interacted with. The other key part of the trial was how they basically got everything wrong about the games they were talking about. Night Trap was called a game about hurting young women. The game is literally the opposite of that. Looking back, it's a wonder this wasn't thrown out after looking at the games for a whole 20 minutes. After the ESRB was established, there were 5 ratings for games. Early childhood, kids to adults, or E for everybody as it goes by now, T for teen, M for mature, and the one we're discussing, AO for adults only. Adults only is a rating that no game wants. To get it means that not only will no store stock you, all 3 major console manufacturers will refuse to let you onto their consoles, and Steam will hide your game by default. It's a kiss of death for any game unlucky enough to be saddled with it, and developers will often go out of their way to avoid it at all costs. The first game to ever receive this rating was The Joys of Sex for the Philips CDI back in 1993. It was less of a game and more a tutorial stage for sex. Just a disc that tells you how best to pleasure a woman. It's a tool vital for any gamer's collection. If there's one thing gamers are gonna need at a moment's notice, it's sex tips. Given the fact that nipples were out and penises were in, the ESRB hammer came down hard on this one. It also sets the tone for almost 3/4 of the list just being pornography. So like, I can't show you any of this. Like, any of this, because pretty much every press image released for these games is too hot for TV, and way too hot for YouTube. So here's some dogs while I talk about it. Pornography in games is one of the big no-nos of the ESRB. Sex in general was something they weren't even comfortable with. An example you may be familiar with is coming later, but even the scenes of kissing and maybe one butt cheek from Mass Effect were enough for news outlets to treat like the second coming of No Russians. It's okay, everybody, they had sex before marriage! Looking back, Jesus, the fact that anybody got upset over this is ridiculous. You can show this on Playhouse Disney, it's fine. But that's not exactly what these games were going for. This isn't like the tasteful kisses and fade out to black from a game like Mass Effect. These are just full-on 2-person push-ups. The majority of this list is made up of exclusively hentai games, including Water Closet, The Forbidden Chamber, whose only usable image is this one. If you don't know what this means, keep it that way. See, with this, not only did some poor ESRB employee have to play through this whole thing, but giving it a rating that would do next to nothing considering the fact that if someone was going to buy this game, they weren't going to the Nintendo eShop for it. They were going to a safe search browser. The Lula series, a game franchise all about the adult film industry, is the only series to have multiple games under the same franchise given this rating. Mom, Dad, please stop watching! And as such, luminary developers like Peach Princess, Mac Daddy Entertainment, and Black Dragon fill up much of the rest of the list. You know, video games aren't art, I just decided that. But there are a select group of games that buck the trend, and they're gonna make up the majority of this video. Of the 30 games that have been branded with the AO rating, these 4 are the ones that make this video any more than just smut. So, thanks for that. First off is a duo, and the most high-profile games to ever make it onto this list. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and Manhunt 2. San Andreas is considered the best game in the trilogy of itself, GTA 3, and Vice City. Its sprawling world, stunning detail, and simple sandbox fun are what made it a critical and fan darling. However, one of the drawbacks to this popularity is the fact that fans wanted more. And if you don't have any more to give, they'll make their own. This led to a healthy modding scene for San Andreas. Mods ranging from graphical updates, new missions, and whatever the fuck this is, it shows just how much people cared about this game. And when you care about something a lot, you want to know everything about it. So when Patrick Windenborg found out that the implied sex scenes in the base game were a little more than implied thanks to a cut minigame, he got hard to work righting that wrong. Later that year in 2005, the Hot Coffee mod was released, and Jesus wept. Now, you may be asking, how is this the developer's fault? Rockstar never put a sex minigame in the game, this weirdo did! Well, not exactly. See, there was a sex minigame in the base game of San Andreas, but it was disabled before the game was launched. Not cut, disabled. All the coding, animation, everything was there. Patrick just flipped the switch. When the media found out, I think the response was mostly subdone.
My son was able to go into Best Buy here in South Miami last night and buy it at the age of 12. He was able to buy Vice City, the other incarnation, at the age of 10, no questions asked.
Today I'm announcing, along with my colleagues, Senator Lieberman and Bai, the Family Entertainment Protection Act.
Okay, so maybe it caused a minor international incident given how it was one of the most popular games of all time at the time of its release, and had a sex minigame in it that developers covered up rather than removed altogether. Setting aside the fact that the game let you do a minor scale genocide of a city of people whenever you wanted, seeing 2 low poly models do the dirty was a bridge too far! This resulted in lawsuits, one specifically put forward by an 85-year-old grandmother who bought the game for her grandson. She alleged that the game was tantamount to abuse for unknowingly exposing her grandson to the devil's twister. If that's the case, wouldn't that also make her guilty of abusing him for giving him the game in the first place? Regardless, Take-Two and Rockstar were in it deep this time. There were other controversies in the past regarding violence and sex with GTA, but this was different. Millions of dollars had to be paid out in order to make these issues go away, and Take-Two eventually offered a refund to anybody who wanted it. A staggering 2,500 people took part in this, devastating the small-scale indie title. This resulted in unsold stock of the game being slapped with the adults-only label as Rockstar scrambled to fix it. This also affected other games at the time, like a lewd Easter egg in Halo 2 resulting in a full-scale recall and mass firings. Because gaming was suddenly under a spotlight for bringing the no-pants dance to the mainstream, eventually the new versions were released, and this incident has haunted Rockstar ever since. San Andreas is still the only game to ever receive a wide release with an adults-only rating, and for the next game, extra special care would be taken. In 2008, Rockstar came back with the sequel to Manhunt, bafflingly titled Manhunt 2? The first Manhunt put you in the role of death row inmate turned snuff film cameraman and star James Cash, and in this game you played as Daniel Lamb, an amnesiac who brutally murders his way to finding out the truth about his past. What I'm trying to get across is that Manhunt 2 is just a blatant ripoff of Shadow the Hedgehog, and everybody should know that. The Manhunt series' trademark is its unnervingly realistic kill animations, that, for the reasons of personal discomfort and not wanting to get taken down, I'll be replacing with clips from Ernest Scared Stupid. The series was already a magnet for controversy before the sequel's release, but as sequels are typically bigger and better, Manhunt 2 went even deeper into the depths that its prequel already plunged. Kills were way more brutal, more graphic, and there were a lot more of them. And instead of preset animations, by default they were QuickTime events that the player had to participate in. You know, when a game's article on Wikipedia has a larger portion dedicated to the controversy than the actual game, you're in for something special. There wasn't one thing in particular that Manhunt 2 did to get people into a frenzy, just the game existing was plenty more than enough to get the outrage going. I mean, a game like Mortal Kombat is way more gruesome than this. People are getting their heads ripped off, limbs hacked to pieces, and generally being reduced to hamburger meat. Well, that's an amount of violence that borders on being comedic. Manhunt has you killing people in ways that are way too close to reality. If Scorpion took out a plastic bag and suffocated Sub-Zero with it, you probably wouldn't say, "Oh, that's sick!" You'd probably just shuffle uncomfortably in your seat. In a way, I can see it, especially since the PC version had a patch release that made it even more gruesome. That's the only version of the game to see the adults-only rating, and it saw difficulty after difficulty when it came to getting into people's hands. I mean, what console would ever host this degenerate murder porn? Just the Wii, I guess. But hey, Rockstar is fueled by controversy in the same way that most cars are fueled by gasoline. They can take a few bumps in the road. Makes sense when you can make more money than most religions. Indigo Prophecy is a game by Quantic Dream and you may also notice Fahrenheit, as the game has different names depending on the region. It's the tale of a man who, in an amnesiac fit of rage, murders a man in a diner bathroom. Afterwards, he has to evade the cops, with the player's view shifting between the murderers and the cops, allowing the player to pick how they want the story to play out. It could be a game of unwitting cat and mouse between a man trying to discover what caused him to commit this grisly murder and the cops doing everything they could to catch him. Or it could be a gaggle of mouth breathers making every mistake possible. Trust me, it goes downhill after the premise. With the description I gave you, would you expect the game to have the following? A tutorial where you don't play as any of the characters you'll be playing as, and instead get to listen to noted crybaby David Cage. You manage to lock yourself inside your apartment. Not outside, inside your apartment, and that's regardless if you're going for the drooling moron route. Get chased by giant green dust mites in a scene that is in no way tongue-in-cheek, and that is genuinely a success and a failure at the same time. Find the bonus points in your cabinet that any bachelor would have. Have the characters point out that David Cage definitely has regressive views on the roles of Asians in media, and so much more!
Oh, I am sorry to cause waiting on you. Your presence here brings honor to my miserable shop. My name is Takyo. Tell me what I can do to make you happy?
Damn, this guy looks just like that old Chinese dude in Gremlins. If he offers me a little box with a monster in it, I am gone.
Me like how the flies lice.
This is all standard fare for a video game, especially a Quantic Dream game. Although standard fare for this company does involve rampant homophobia, sexism, and having to be near David Cage, which is somehow worse than those last two things, so what got it the adults-only rating? Well, it's 'cause in a scene with Lucas, the main character, reuniting with his old flame, and they just have a good time. They're just really, really good friends wrestling. I think that's a Greco-Roman hold. Some hardcore wrestling. Guys, I have a confession. They're not actually wrestling. I lied to you to protect you. It's actually sex. Weird sex, driven mainly by QuickTime event sequences, where you have to keep hitting up because this game sets out to make you feel like the hermit pervert living under a freeway who sells you used porno mags for $1. And this also happens while nu metal is playing, which I think is where most of the offense came from. That and the game's drug and alcohol references got the game its adults-only rating. But it gets stranger. The game was remastered in 2015 under Fahrenheit, the Indigo Prophecy, redone and completely uncensored. However, this time around, it was rated as mature in all regions, dodging the adults-only rating despite having all the same content that got the adults-only rating in the first place. Now, if I were to give the game an adults-only rating, it would be for the fact that this deep character dive into the mind of a man driven into a violent fit of rage by supernatural causes ends with a Dragon Ball Z-style fight scene. Adults are the only ones who can understand how brutally silly this is. However, if I had to guess, the ESRB kinda had their hands full with a different game. Hatred is a game that would make your parents faint. When everyone was told that video games would make you violent, this is the game they were talking about. The plot is that you're a death metal fan who wants to die and is going to take as many people down with him as he can. What's most important, though, is his can-do attitude. But frankly, that's where the story begins and ends, because that's not what this game wants to be. Given the fact the game was written by a guy named Herr Vorkrime from a metal band called Infernal War, I think this should have been expected, frankly. Now, I'd like to say some of the names of his songs, but I think I might actually be the worst person to say it. So I'll let someone else do it.
Chainsaw Gutfuck, Cesarne Legioni SS, The Gospel of Hatred and Hypothesis of Genocide, Satanic Martial Hunter, Aryan Nation Rebirth, and Jewhammer.
Wow! Namaste. Anyway, Hatred is a game made with the intention of offending, so it should be no surprise that it offended people. Its greenlight campaign was taken down off of Steam, before being put back there with no less than an apology from Gabe Newell himself. The game's pre-release was flooded with controversy, game outlets calling it the second coming of Satan himself, not helped along by one of the most infamous game trailers of all time.
My name is not important. What is important is the environment I'm going to save. I just fuzzy love this world, and the human contact I get on a day-to-day basis. My whole life, my dad gave me warm, firm hugs, and I always wanted to drive responsibly. This is the time of friendship, and no life is without value. And I will try to behave as nicely as I can.
Yes, the Hatred trailer, otherwise known as What Would Happen If Shadow the Hedgehog was raised by a gun nut who thinks Batman should smile less. The controversy did wonders for the game's success, however. People who were upset about Hatred not realizing that by talking about the game and how you shouldn't play it, that just made people want to play it all the more. The game was on Steam's best sellers page for a long time, despite how I said Steam hides adult games by default. The developers said the game isn't meant to be taken seriously, it's satire! It's ironic, Mom! Why do games like GTA, Saints Row, and Postal get a free pass with M ratings, while Hatred gets an adults only? I mean, in those games you can kill innocent civilians, use a cat as a suppressor, murder the Taliban, kick an alien in the dick. Well, the difference with Hatred is the fact that while those games have a more lighthearted and goofy nature to them, Hatred only has its brutal murders. GTA has well-written and fun protagonists with characteristics that make you care about them. Postal is so inherently over the top with everything about itself that you don't even see it as a slaughter simulator. Heck, the game never even tells you to kill people. And Saints Row is so totally goofy that they mock how seriously they used to take themselves. Hatred, however, never feels like it's having fun with itself. You can't just claim irony while doing nothing to make the experience ironic. Is anything here supposed to be fun? It's just a downer game that refuses to stop taking itself so seriously, that the only comedy inherent in the game is when it shits the bed at the end.
How do I overload the reactors?
What? No, never! It will cause a massive explosion! Are you insane?
That's what I want, and you will tell me, or I'll make you die. Very
Alright, please stop! I will do this! I will. No, I won't do that! I will do this! I will do this! I can't be responsible for this! Kill me again!
This is all without mentioning the fact that a real world exists outside of video games, and at the time of the game's release, mass shootings in America were so common that a flag at half-mast was how most people recognized it. That led to people asking if a game that trivialized these events should even come out. But that's never the question Hatred wanted to ask. It didn't want to ask any questions. It just wanted to watch people squirm in their seats as they showed them gory death after gory death, no substance, no meaning. It just wanted to watch people react. Sorry, do I sound genuinely upset by this? Nowadays, Hatred has all but been forgotten to time, now a relic that someone scrolling down the list of adults-only game would see and say, "Oh yeah, that one." Kinda like me. Okay, I think I made it. If you're hearing me right now, that means the video is still up and I made it to the end without getting taken down. I probably had to go through painstaking efforts to edit it into something viewable for YouTube, so, you know, one like wouldn't hurt. The adults-only rating is one of those things that's an anomaly in games. On the one hand, there are so few games that are adults-only that what makes a true one is hard to pin down. Aside from big anime boobs, clearly. At the same time, most games would either be caught selling on-disc DLC than having an adults-only rating. But then you have a game like Agony, which released a patch which made the game adults-only, so at that point, what's the point? I think there should be an adults-only rating, but if you're gonna have it, define what gets a game the rating. As for me, I'm taking it slow from now on. I need to unwind. I've been to one extreme, it's time to go to the other.
Find the shape that is 1/2 blue. One half blue. That's fresh. Find the shape that